Welcome to Being Human. I'm your host, Steve Cuss.
I'm joining in today, Lisa Cuss.
Great to be with you today. Being Human is all about helping you be human-sized so you can improve and thrive in all your relationships. Of course, your relationships with your people, but also your relationship with God, which often has the same dynamics as your human relationships. And a lot of what we focus on this show is your elusive relationship with yourself.
Yes.
Because if you can manage yourself, that can help you improve your other relationships. So that's fundamentally what Being Human is about. And one of the things we do every episode is we light a candle because we do have a relationship with God, and it's different than our human relationships because God's invisible. And therefore, I at least find it sometimes more difficult to relate to an invisible God. So just lighting a candle is just a weekly experience we do on this podcast. I know some of our audience joins on audio, and so it's kind of funny that we light a candle on an audio podcast. But what you can do as we light the candle is just take a breath and just relax into God's presence. That's really what this is all about. By the way, I got a comment from our last episode when I was in Central Park, and somebody must have watched on video. And his comment was, I never thought you had a real candle.
One of the flickering ones? One of the battery ones?
I think he thought we were pretending because it was an audio. He's always listening on audio, and this was his first time joining on video.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
But actually, if I may brag, I packed a candle, had to navigate it through TSA.
The candle means a lot to us.
It does.
Seeing light means a lot.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, this is our Thanksgiving episode that we wanted to do. And we're also very aware that as we move into Thanksgiving week, that it is Thanksgiving for America, but we have a global audience that not everybody celebrates Thanksgiving, of course.
You're married to a global spouse.
I am married to a global spouse.
You're married to an exotic man.
There's so many ways to look at it.
Right. Okay, fine. Yes, so Australia was not so much formed by pilgrims as we were by convicts. That's how my family got started in Australia, a mule thief.
Does that mean you are or are not grateful?
We are a nation of ingrates. That's what I would say. We don't celebrate Thanksgiving in Australia, but we're very familiar with it in Australia. Of course, our Canadian sisters and brothers celebrate at a different time.
Yeah, in October. Yeah. And so what I love about even celebrating holidays around the world is it is an opportunity to stop and be intentional about a particular area of our lives. And so we just do invite, whether this is Thanksgiving week for you or not, we do want to just look at some gratitude, gratefulness, and in that connectedness as well.
Yeah, Thanksgiving can be this really rich time, and it can also be super complicated with family and in complex relationships.
Yep.
Sometimes when I can't sleep, I'll open my iPad and scroll Reddit.
Yeah.
And there's tons of Thanksgiving stuff on Reddit right now. There's one lady that she was invited to someone else's Thanksgiving. They were hosting. There's like 12 people coming. The lady says, "What can I bring?" And the host said, "You bring the turkey."
That is your dream.
Yeah, that's what I would love to. I would love to host Thanksgiving and have everyone bring everything.
And do nothing and just
host.
Yeah.
My home is the gift.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, also there's so many strategies that people have for Thanksgiving just eating wise.
Yeah.
Like I've heard of some people who like eat nothing the day before and then weigh themselves that morning so that they can completely fill themselves.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's funny, all the strategies around.
There was another Reddit thread, and this is my fantasy. I've always wanted to go to someone's house and bring Ziploc bags and then help myself to the leftovers at the end of the night.
Oh, gosh.
And I've always asked people, what would you do if I did that? Well, on Reddit, sure enough, somebody hosted a potluck Thanksgiving, and this guest brought nothing but Tupperware and then helped himself to leftovers afterwards.
If you ever do that, make sure I am not with you.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's
my request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of our most famous, actually, tools relates to Thanksgiving, and that's our life-giving list. Maybe just tell people, we've got a lot of new audience. Maybe just quickly tell them what the life-giving list is.
Yeah, life-giving list is being intentional about those activities, those people, those places, that when you experience them, you feel really alive, you feel connected, and you sense being loved. And whether it's being loved directly by God or directly by somebody else or like in just whatever it is in the moment, we believe that the sense of being loved by somebody else also leads to being loved by God. So it's those things that make you feel really alive.
So this began for me in 2016. 2016 was a pivotal year in my faith journey. And for me, the Life-Giving List was born as a full-time pastor that I noticed I just kept like defaulting into being God's employee more than God's child.
Yeah.
And when I thought about the gifts from God, I always had an eye on the congregation. What can I give to these people? Not because I'm selfless. I don't say that as if I'm some great person. But I think this is a common challenge for church staff particularly, is we tend to conflate our vocation with our identity. So yeah, I created the Life-Giving List just to try to, I know it sounds weird, but stub my toe on the love of God in so many different ways, in ways that I couldn't benefit the congregation.
Yes.
One of the big ones for me, Lisa, was I had to learn to read theology without having an eye on the pulpit. I used to love to read theology. And then over time, I just felt all this pressure to create sermons. And so one of them for me was now I read just for my own reception, my own benefit.
Yeah.
That was big.
The whole idea behind this also is that when we can experience the love and grace of God, that we're more apt to also give it.
Right.
In the easy ways and in the difficult ways.
Right.
Which a lot of us are coming right up against as we look at the holidays and spending time with people we love and also difficult people that we love.
Right.
Yeah.
So Life-Giving List goes a couple of ways. List the big things in your life, like the dream. That, a lot of people put a beach vacation or something. That's great. But we also encourage you to try to cultivate 6 or 8 micro habits a day, things that just take a few minutes. So for me this morning, getting my dog out for a walk, that's a life-giving experience. But also I've got listed down watching his pleasure as he runs. Like this morning, I had him off leash and he found this old dead branch. And Brody just thinks he's the king of the hill when he finds a branch. And just his pleasure gives me pleasure. I try to play a musical instrument every day if I can. I try to watch stand-up comedy a little bit every day. These are little micro habits. We both have Bible reading plans that we participate in every day. But when you add them up, over the course of the day, they usually don't even take an hour. And yet, if you just pause and give thanks to God in the moment, it just helps you relax into God's presence.
There's something about nature, whether you're walking in it or viewing it, that allows you, it changes your posture for me. So just to lift my head, to see the beauty, and it's life-giving.
Okay, so we have on the show notes a link if you would like to download a free Life-Giving List. It's a simple spreadsheet, but it also comes with a couple of very brief instruction videos. I think the videos are like 6 or 7 minutes long each, just to teach you how to make one and how to use it. It's all about intentionality. So click on the show notes, or you can just go to capablelife.com and grab your free Life-Giving List. We're bringing this up for 2 reasons. One is in the US, it's Thanksgiving season, and so it's as good excuse as ever to practice gratitude. But the other reason is the complexity that can come with Thanksgiving when you get back to your family of origin.
And just the entrance into the holidays in general, worldwide, that this brings up a variety of emotions for people as they just begin this season.
Right. A lot of grief, a lot of loneliness comes up in the holiday season. And then here in North America, we just fresh on the heels of a political election.
Yes, we are.
Wasn't exactly a smooth one.
Yeah.
Another bumpy election for us.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we get into, for people who are approaching Thanksgiving dinner literally with trepidation, because of complex family dynamics, I think what I'll do is just hand the rest of the episode over to you. So what are some things we can do to prepare ourselves to navigate it well?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing we'd like to start with is just even taking some intentional time to spend noticing on what's going on in you and on what a win would look like. So if you know that there's things that you are anxious about in getting together with people coming up, or with grief or loss, because this time reminds you of maybe loved ones that are no longer here, thinking ahead to at that meal or at that visit, what could a win look like beyond the fear and the anxiety that we hold? And usually you go small with wins. It might be
You set the high jump bar so low.
so low.
You just step over it.
Yeah. And that we're going to expect some anxiety. We might expect to be a little bit triggered or blindsided. But if a win could look like laughter with somebody else, then that's something we want to hold on to. That's a win. If it could look like learning something new while you're there, if it could look like looking beyond the reactivity from somebody else to maybe connection in somebody else. If it could look like a pet that you're looking forward to seeing, and just catching up with. I mean, there's so many things, but for you, what could a win look like alongside the anxiety that you're expecting to experience?
Yeah, this is really helpful, this simple idea of noticing, because anxiety, and for those of you who have been with us for a while, this is not new, but maybe a helpful reminder. Just noticing anxiety makes you less likely to catch and spread it.
Yeah.
But if you are not in a noticing frame of mind, you are much more likely to catch and spread it. I'm thinking about one of the things that we often notice is predictable patterns between people. So it may be that you're coming into Thanksgiving with some extended family and you've got a name in mind and you're like, oh, I know what's going to happen. And what's going on in your brain is you've already judged that person, and honestly, maybe for good reason, but you've already kind of written them off and you're going in armored up. But going in noticing the pattern makes it less likely that you'll catch the reactivity. Sometimes it's even funny. I've been in like a group of friends, this isn't really Thanksgiving related, where one friend was always a one-upper. No matter what you shared, he would one-up. And then I'm mortified that I was that guy, I think in my 20s. I remember noticing it about myself. Thinking,
Isn't that scary? How many people are thinking about us as the reactive people situation?
We often judge the people that
we're most like,
which is why I judge freakishly handsome people. Just so judgmental of supermodels.
As we come back to exotic, yes.
I'm an exotic man.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one-upping used to really irritate me. But then when I thought, I'm just going to notice it next time, it kind of became funny.
Yeah.
And it didn't change anything, but it stopped me from contributing to the problem.
Yeah, it allows you to say, there it is.
Right.
And almost chuckle to yourself or allow it to be, almost something you can enjoy because you noticed it ahead of time rather than engaged in it.
I think we sometimes, when we're not paying attention to predictable patterns, we get surprised by them every time, and then we get offended or upset. When really by now, if we know these patterns, and so one of the predictable patterns in me, like when I've had a challenging relationship with a family member, is my tendency to need to be right and to like shrink them down to two-dimensional and forget all the good things. That's something. Like last year when I was driving down to visit my dad and things were difficult with that situation for a variety of complex reasons. And the work I was doing on that drive was remembering all the wonderful things about my dad. And there's a lot of things.
Yes.
But because I was hurt and frustrated and anxious, my brain was wanting me to only focus on the things that were difficult.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about a predictable pattern, I'm not even talking about what someone else is doing. I'm certainly also noticing like my part in it.
Yeah. Yep. The complicitness.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you put into the middle of the situation, what somebody else does.
Yeah.
And even our thought process that impacts it before we get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So good.
So Thanksgiving's not always the time to change these patterns. What would it be like if somebody came to Thanksgiving in North America and wore a Kamala Harris t-shirt and a MAGA hat?
It would be called cognitive distortion.
It would be cognitive distortion.
Yeah. Another thing we were thinking through then is just on the day of your gathering or whatever it is before you, to take some intentional time to ground yourself. That when we have all of these things build up within us, what we're afraid of is our body not feeling safe, so that our only response is high reactivity, whether that's fight or flee or kind of just shut down.
Flop.
Or flop, yeah. But if you're aware of how you might respond, then we want to spend some intentional time just bringing safety to your body. And this could be very much a part of your life-giving list as well. For me, that would look like getting outside, letting the cold, which is where we live, on my face. It would look like stretching outside to not be so rigid and let that move through my body. It might look like a brisk walk or a jog. I know for some people that looks like a phone call with somebody who is really safe with them that morning before they step into the hard, so that you've experienced something where you feel really safe and can help you feel alive before moving into the hard thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's things you can do to deepen your capacity before you walk into the door or those people walk into your door. The whole predictable pattern thing, we would also caution. What often happens when people start talking about these patterns is they're very anxious to now change them. And we would caution that Thanksgiving and Christmas is probably not the right time to begin to change what's probably a long-standing pattern. And so Jimmy Carnes, one of our coaches for Capable Life, he says the problem with this kind of work is by the time you figure it out and kind of get to you get to fed up, you've had enough, you actually don't have much resource and capacity to change it.
You're done.
Yeah, you're kind of cooked.
Yep.
And that's often the worst time. We've learned that as parents, where if we're really struggling with something with our kids, especially when they were younger, we would have to do quite a bit of work to deepen our capacity before we could talk to the kids.
You get further once people are well.
Yeah.
Enough. Yeah.
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 Okay, so noticing is big. Noticing yourself, noticing your body, noticing patterns, not being surprised when Uncle Joe brings up what he's going to bring up again, says that inappropriate joke, whatever he's going to do. We're not trying to suggest when to speak up and not, but we want to give you some things to think about. Really, the last tool we wanted to talk about is curiosity. Why is curiosity so powerful?
Oh man, let's be curious about that. I think it's powerful because it allows us to not judge ourselves or what's going on in the moment, but allows us just to wonder about things rather than feel so rigid and stuck in them. So anytime we can be curious, and really your example of going and just noticing if the pattern's going to happen, that's an example of being curious. Let's just see if this is what happens this time. Oh, there it is,
right.
And then it impacts us less because we're more in a state of wonder, of interest, of even, I don't know, curiosity also opens us up to be able to see some joy or beauty on the other side of it.
Yeah, see more than you thought there was to be there.
It kind of broadens your vision as well.
Yeah, and the biggest surprise to me about curiosity is I thought entering into a posture of curiosity helps the other person. I'm surprised how much it helps me stay grounded.
Yep.
I think signs that I'm anxious is I move into fix-it mode or judgment mode.
Yes.
And then curiosity keeps both of those at bay. It's hard to judge someone when I'm asking them more about what they said.
Yes. Yeah. And so just some key things that I find I say to myself in the moment, whether it's to myself or in my mind towards somebody else, is, oh, that's interesting. Curious. Like even saying the word, can help change your state or help you shift gears just a little bit.
Can you be passive-aggressive? Can you say, I'm really curious about that absolutely absurd racist thing you just said? Probably not. Not best.
Probably not best.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's a combination of curiosity and judgment right there.
Yes,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, but just even having key phrases or postures, like sometimes for me also, I notice if I'm more in judgment mode, I'm going to be I just feel in my body more rigid and like hunched. But if I lean back into a relaxed mode and like my arm on the chair behind me for people that are not on video, anything that's going to open me up more, it helps me also think more curiously. Yeah. What about you?
Oh, I think my biggest thing I've noticed is how I've kind of pre-written the script in my head. And so curiosity, I love what you said about it opens up more of a vista. I don't remember quite how you said it, but like there's more possibility. I think I protect myself by coming in saying it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
And then I'm not proud of this, but I definitely shrink people down to two-dimensional.
Yeah.
And then that way I can judge them and contain them rather than letting them be a complex, wild, and free human being.
How do you know when you've done that?
I think it helps to have been old.
A lot of reps?
I think it helps to have seen it. And
Yeah.
then I think in this whole journey, this whole podcast is about noticing yourself, taking responsibility for yourself. This whole journey, I just keep running into myself. And yeah, like last Christmas was big for me. I remember calling you, talking to my sister, just because Dad had done some inappropriate things, some bad things. And yet he's my dad, and that's not all that's true about him. But in the moment, it was all that felt true. Like,
yes.
So I did a lot of what you coached, the grounding, the taking care of myself, the life-giving activities. Now my chance of seeing God goes through the roof. I guess that's what we haven't covered yet is anxiety removes your awareness of God. It's harder to be aware of God when you're reactive.
Yes, it is.
So I'm also getting better at noticing when I've stopped noticing God's presence and trying to not tolerate that.
Yeah, it's kind of like curiosity is a tool that can help you step off the treadmill of your thought loops or your assumption that all of somebody is manipulative or bad but just curious slows down the pace, allows you to step off and look at what might else be going on instead.
Yeah, a lot of it is thinking about the way you think and learning to notice your exaggerations and your hard-edged words. He always does this. I never get to... that kind of stuff, you realize that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. So good.
So then our last tool is a simple breath prayer, really. It's the simple idea that when we are reactive, we are prone to forget the Lord. And so relaxing into God's presence, it's one of the key reasons we light the candle. And what we do is we just pause and remember three simple things. Number one, God is with me. I'm not alone. Which is what anxiety is trying to tell me. Anxiety has a gospel, and one of its messages is, it's all on you. So just remembering, no, that's not true. God's with me. One of the things that really helps us is remembering God's ahead of me. So when I walk through that door into that house, God's already in the room.
Yes.
And then God's with that person that I'm frustrated, Uncle Joe that drives you crazy.
He's holding what's going on in them as much as he's holding what's going on in you.
I remember one time you asked me a question. I think I was ranting about someone I was frustrated with, and I think you said, what percentage of Imago Dei is in that person? Very loaded question. You were reminding me, it doesn't matter what you think of them, God made them in God's image, their worth, respect and dignity. That helped me a lot. Yeah.
I wonder if it would be good, just even as we close, to go ahead and do the breath prayer together. So we would it's just the three simple statements, and we invite you wherever you are to go ahead and take a breath in. And as you breathe in, you're going to say, God with me to yourself. As you breathe out, you're going to breathe out, God ahead of me. As you breathe in, you're going to breathe in, God with them. And then just take a moment to do a really slow exhale. One more time, we're going to do God with me. Breathe in. God ahead of me. Breathe out. God with them. Breathe in. And then a really slow exhale. Just a reminder to let that truth fill you first before you step into those situations as well.
Yeah, and so you can do that on Thanksgiving Day or, again, for our global audience, the next time you're about to walk into a meeting that you know is going to make you anxious. And we encourage you to get really specific. So I picture the room and then I name the person, things like that. Let's wrap up the episode with a little fun rapid fire about Thanksgiving. Your favorite Thanksgiving meat, if you had to choose this one.
We were just talking about that. I would prefer to do brisket rather than turkey, but turkey's so traditional. Yeah. We know people that do tacos.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
And you wouldn't do goose, for example. Yeah. You're not one that's digested a lot of goose.
What's yours?
I think I'm going to have to go turkey because, Thanksgiving is still a relatively new experience to me. And so I'd say turkey. Favorite side dish?
Right now it's,
It's tricky.
Yeah. Potato casserole or my mom's homemade rolls.
I was thinking I was going to have to say my beloved mother-in-law's homemade rolls.
Yeah, they're so good.
Like them in the world.
Yep.
Because I was trying to figure out if there's a third category of favorite carbohydrate.
They're usually the sides.
Mom's roll.
Yeah.
And then I got to say stuffing. I love some good stuffing.
Yeah. Box stuffing or homemade?
I'm going boxed.
Me too.
I'm very happy with boxed.
Yeah, all the way. Awesome.
Okay, folks. Well, that's Being Human, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Happy Thanksgiving to those of you that are in the States, and happy time of gratitude to those of you around the world.